Minimalism at a shocking price. A plain white t-shirt for $520, a black shirt for almost $2,000, and a bag for $7,500. And these are the simplest pieces imaginable, yet this brand quietly rose to fame, riding the wave of quiet luxury long before it was trendy. People line up to buy their garments. But how is it possible? And what makes it so expensive? The founders were child stars, the Olsen twins. They were actresses, not designers, but they managed to build a fashion house now compared to Hermès. Most celebrity labels flop, yet the row earned real respect in the design world. There was no flashy marketing, no gimmicks, just a strange, hypnotic kind of luxury. So what makes this brand so irresistible, and how did the twins create this aura that makes it so coveted among celebrities and the ultra-wealthy? In this video, we'll uncover how they did it step by step. By the end, you'll understand the rose aesthetic, its groundbreaking quiet marketing, and finally get the answer to the big question: why is it so damn expensive? Hey guys, my name is Anna. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to my channel where we talk all things fashion, and every weekend there's a new video about fashion news or a deep dive into a style topic of today. So make sure to subscribe before we begin, and let's get into it. So before we break down the row itself, we need to talk a little bit about the sisters and how their careers unfolded, because their interest in fashion didn't come out of nowhere, it was seeded in childhood. They started working at 6 months old. That's when they landed their very first role in the sitcom Full House. Since labor laws for kids were strict in the US, it was a perfect solution to have twins take turns playing the same baby. This way, filming could move forward without long breaks. From there, it snowballed. One of my personal favorites is It Takes Two, the movie that turned them into actual stars. Everyone suddenly knew who the Olsen twins were, and once that worked, studios leaned in hard. Every single year, there was a new Olsen movie. Passport to Paris, Winning London, Holiday in the Sun. The formula was always the same. The twins travel to a different city, there's a love story, some intrigue, plenty of cliches, but it was fun, family-friendly, and easy to watch. And there was always that one classic montage, the girls going shopping to a pop song. Honestly, that moment alone shaped the fantasy for so many kids watching. Shopping in Paris or London or Rome. Something like this seems like a lighthearted detail, and it's interesting that it became the very first association of the Olsen twins with fashion. Even if at the time they weren't choosing what to wear on screen, the connection between them and style was already being planted. But what made it even more compelling is that outside of the movies, their personal style stood out right away. Red carpets, premieres, other events, you could already see that they dressed differently from other teen stars of that era. They weren't chasing the same look, and fashion clearly fascinated them. That's where Judy Schwartz, their stylist and mentor, comes in. While most teenage celebrities wore mass market brands, Ashley and Mary-Kate were stepping out in Chanel, Miu Miu, Dolce & Gabbana, and Prada. Not the kids' lines either, actual runway pieces altered to fit them. That detail says a lot. Red carpets or other celebrity events usually turn into a shallow performance of wealth, but in their case, it showed a genuine obsession with high fashion. Later, when they became household names, the world followed their style even more closely. Messy waves, oversized sunglasses, gigantic bags, floor-sweeping coats, a few sizes too big, and always the city bag by Balenciaga in hand. By the way, I talked all about cold bags and id bags in a recent video. The Olsen twins and their favorite Balenciaga were of course mentioned, so check that one out if you haven't already. At that point, the twins were real style icons. People copied them endlessly, especially after New York Minute. Funny enough, that film is cult now, but back then it actually flopped in theaters. And that flop pushed them toward the most important decision of their lives, ending their movie careers. They realized the twin trope could only go so far, and mostly in a childish context, so they left acting behind. By then, they were already worth around $200 million, and they could have easily retired at 18, while most people were just starting their careers. But they chose a different, unexpected path, and a few years later, in 2007, they launched The Row. There have been plenty of situations where actresses or singers launched their own brands, slapped their name on it, and released something they had no real connection to. It was often just a one-off, unserious project, almost like that debut collection Jenny Humphrey designs from Gossip Girl. Fun for a moment, but not exactly the foundation of a lasting fashion house. The Olsen sisters, though, started in a completely different way. The very first piece from their new brand was a white t-shirt priced at $150 US. For that time, it was shockingly expensive. Think about it. If you're launching a brand and the first thing you put out is a plain overpriced t-shirt, everyone around you would probably tell you it's destined to flop. But their whole idea lived in that contradiction. They were true fashion lovers, and what they felt was missing was simple, well-cut, minimalist clothing in the luxury segment. That absence became their motivation. So instead of chasing logos or gimmicks, they created what they considered the perfect white t-shirt. It was made of silk, finished with couture-level detail like a French seam down the back, and absolutely logo-free. Something so ordinary was elevated to a level of a gem. Therefore, it immediately set the tone for what the robe would become. The team even spent 9 months perfecting that one t-shirt. It was followed by a batwing sleeve top, skinny black jeans, and a few other understated but carefully constructed pieces. All high quality, all expensive. From the beginning, they had nailed their formula: simple silhouettes, couture, craftsmanship. The rose aesthetic became clear very early on. It embodies minimalism, wardrobe basics, and natural tones. You'll find oversized white shirts with a masculine touch, blazers in the same spirit, long trench coats, and perfectly tailored trousers. At first, the brand focused only on women's wear. In 2018, they launched menswear, and by 2021, even kidswear joined the mix. Stylistically, the row has a lot in common with Brunello Cucinelli. Their goal wasn't to create a single viral piece, as many brands do, but to build an entire wardrobe of impeccable basics. Something like this would usually make a brand fade into the background, but in the Rose case, it actually reinforced their position. When you buy from them, the idea is that you can stock up on every foundational piece you need, all at once. Even though they're not chasing it items, naturally some products do end up exploding. In 2023, the List Index named the Row flip-flops one of the hottest products of the year. Their trousers are especially popular. Not one specific model, but all of them, because trousers are famously the hardest thing to get right, and the Row is known for cutting them perfectly. The fisherman sandals had their moment, the oversized coat with the attached scarf became a signature, and their crisp men's-style shirts remain a constant favorite. And when it comes to accessories, the Margaux bag basically blew up. It topped countless fashion lists, and people are already calling it the new Birkin. I mentioned it in my recent video on iconic bags, so check that out if you haven't yet. All of this comes at a price, of course. The Row is made only from the highest quality materials. And yes, we'll talk more about their price point in a moment, but for now, what's important to understand is that the Row is the ultimate example of quiet luxury. But they're not just quiet in their designs, they're quiet in their marketing too. And that's rare in today's fashion world. It's actually one of the most fascinating aspects of their success because they managed to build a label associated with the absolute top tier while avoiding loud campaigns or overexposure. So let's take a closer look at how their marketing strategies work. First and most important is the lack of ego, and you can see it clearly reflected in the brand's principles. The Olsen twins made a very smart move by naming their label simply The Row. Nowhere it was obvious that they stood behind it. We know today, of course, but for years, almost no one realized it was their brand. It wasn't until the 7th year of the Row's existence that they even started giving interviews as designers. They didn't do press tours, they didn't appear in campaigns, they didn't even run their own Instagram account. And we'll get into that part later. In every possible way, they downplayed the fact that they were the faces behind the label. Their reasoning is simple. If they create truly good clothes, the pieces should sell themselves. They don't need big logos or their celebrity names attached to them. On one hand, that deserves respect because it shows genuine belief in the product. On the other hand, it was also a very clever PR move. The truth is that celebrity clothing brands in the 2000s had a shaky reputation. They were mostly budget-friendly lines with questionable quality. We all remember growing up with J-Lo's clothing line, the Kendall and Kylie collections, or similar celebrity projects. They were popular with kids and teenagers, but no one ever considered them luxury. People are always skeptical when a celebrity launches a brand. It usually signals something unserious. And when you're planning to sell trousers for 1,500 euros, your own star power can actually damage the credibility of the brand. The Olsens seem to understand this perfectly. Therefore, hiding their involvement wasn't just modesty, it was a strategic move. They managed to tame their egos and think like real entrepreneurs. And why the Row? The name is a reference to Savile Row in London, the legendary street of tailoring. It's known as the heart of men's suiting, where the best tailors in the world work. That influence is still visible in the brand's DNA. The Olsens often orient their designs around men's tailoring. Oversized shirts, sharp shoulders, perfectly structured trousers. trousers. They believe a good quality men's suit should have flawless construction, and they applied that same philosophy to every garment they create, male or female. Even the first ad for the row carried this same energy. It appeared in Vogue, a completely white page with only the small logo, the row, in the corner. Years later, on the 125th anniversary of Vogue, they congratulated the magazine with a similar minimal ad. Again, clean and effortlessly elegant. The same principle applies to the runway shows. They officially present during Fashion Week, but the way they do it always stands apart. Instead of the usual chaos of Paris Fashion Week, they might invite guests out to a countryside chateau or replace a show with an intimate morning presentation where green tea is served instead of champagne. For Fall/Winter 2024 in Paris, they went even further. No photos allowed during the show. Guests were handed notebooks and pens to jot down impressions, and the brand released its own video hours later. There are never rows of celebrities in the front row. Only buyers and fashion journalists get seats, often at 9 a.m., a time chosen specifically so that only those who truly care will attend. Everything about their presentation communicates one message: the row is serious and we're not here to play. Whether it's their personal wish after growing up in the glare of cameras or simply razor-sharp PR strategy, the result is the same. Minimalism and restraint rule not only the clothes, but the way the brand is framed, marketed, and positioned. And this has been consistent for over 15 years. Every detail aligns into a single puzzle. The same philosophy extends to Instagram. The platform changed the entire fashion landscape and pop culture, yet not the row. Their feed looks more like an art gallery or a mood board than a traditional brand account. You'll see sculptures, paintings, sometimes non-commercial photo shoots of the clothes, and only rarely a runway video. There are no celebrities pictured wearing the row, even though half of Hollywood actually does. No one thought such a strategy could work, but it does. The account has nearly 3 million followers, all attracted by this enigmatic, museum-like presentation. The only personal touch the sisters allowed themselves is curating Spotify playlists that they share each month. But photos of the Olsens themselves, nowhere to be found. And they don't have personal social media accounts either, not on Instagram, not anywhere. Meanwhile, countless fan pages dedicated to their looks exist, many of them fueled by paparazzi shoots. The twins closed off access to their personal lives almost immediately after launching the row, and that privacy only amplified interest in them. But for the brand, they were tabloid fixtures. Covers, gossips about eating disorders, addiction, marriages, endless speculation. After the row, it became nearly impossible to spot them at social events. The rare photos that appear now, usually candid moments of them smoking on a work break, holding Starbucks cups, wearing oversized coats, are their own kind of aesthetic. There are mood boards entirely dedicated to these images. Their personal style, loved by so many, works as one of the biggest engines for the brand. In their youth, their style was more bohemian, sometimes flashy, but with the row they shifted completely to quiet luxury. Monochrome layers, minimal silhouettes, and almost French sense of effortless chic. What began as their personal evolution became the perfect expression of their brand. Today, every new paparazzi drop of Olsen's street style creates a ripple online, indirectly fueling the row's desirability. Without ever putting their faces in campaigns, they became the label's best advertisement. So if there are no loud campaigns, how do people, especially the ultra-wealthy, discover the row? The answer is word of mouth. In those elite circles, luxury spreads quietly, and that is enough. But interestingly, external cultural moments also help boost the brand's profile. One of the biggest moments was when Phoebe Philo left Celine. Under Phoebe, Celine was known for its refined minimalism and masculine tailoring in women's wear, the exact aesthetic the row embodies. When Hedi Slimane took over and shifted the style dramatically, Celine's loyal fans were left searching for an alternative. Therefore, many of them migrated to the row, giving the brand a wave of new attention and clients. Another moment came in 2023 during Gwyneth Paltrow's widely publicized ski trial. The case itself dated back to 2016 when she collided with a man on the slopes, and he later sued her for $300,000. The trial finally happened in 2023, and while the legal drama played out, fashion media was obsessed with her outfits. Gwyneth showed up every day in extremely minimal yet ultra-luxurious looks. Entire outlets broke down her wardrobe piece by piece. This sweater from this house, those boots from another. She embodied the quiet luxury and old money aesthetic so perfectly that her looks became bigger news than the trial itself. And yes, several of her outfits included pieces from the row, like a moss green wool coat and a simple turtleneck, something that wasn't part of the Olsen's plan, ended up massively boosting their visibility. That moment cemented 2023 as another peak for the brand, fueled by both the viral quiet luxury trend and by Gwyneth's unintentional runway on the courthouse steps. And by the way, speaking of word of mouth and collaborations with celebrities or influencers, up until 2021, the Row was basically the equivalent of Hermès when it came to marketing, meaning they didn't really work with celebrities, they didn't do influencer campaigns, they relied entirely on word of mouth. And it worked. That really was their main advertising channel. Then in 2020, the brand went through some serious financial struggles. Obviously, the pandemic hit all fashion houses hard, but the Row wasn't that big to begin with, and on top of that, they're still an independent label. They're not part of any big fashion conglomerate, which means that financially during crises like that, it's even harder for them. Still, that moment of instability explains what happened next, because suddenly in 2021, within a very short time frame, the brand started popping up on Instagram. First on Zoe Kravitz, then Kendall Jenner, then Bella Hadid. All of them within weeks of each other. And even though the Row never confirmed it, well, they wouldn't, that's just not how they operate, it's pretty clear these were paid integrations. Normally, if a brand has a celebrity in their clothes, they'll repost it in stories, make a thing out of it. But if you look at the Row's Instagram, you'll see they have a completely different social media policy, so of course, nothing was ever confirmed. Still, after nearly 15 years of avoiding influencer marketing, the timing says a lot. It looks like the financial stress, the staff cuts, all of that pushed them to finally use those tools, even if they didn't want to. But the irony is, the Row doesn't even need influencer marketing to be loved by celebrities. Michelle Obama has worn them, Kate Blanchett too, Jennifer Aniston, and one of the biggest fans is Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, who always looks amazing in their pieces. Their clothes have also been spotted on Hailey Bieber, Jennifer Lawrence, and Kelly Rutherford from Gossip Girl, who actually said in her Vogue January 2024 interview that the Row helped her gain a second wave of popularity during the rise of quiet luxury. And it makes sense, celebrities are drawn to minimalist brands like the Row because in their daily lives, they want the opposite of what they wear for work. On the red carpet, they're constantly in bold, bright, maximalist outfits, so in private, they lean toward minimalism. And I feel that too. Obviously, I'm not comparing myself to celebrities, but I've noticed that when I put all my creative energy into styling looks for Instagram, which by the way, if you still don't follow me, you're more than welcome to do. In real life, I just want to keep it simple. The difference is that stars don't shop at Uniqlo, they buy the Row. And now let's finally get into the big question. Why is the Row so expensive? Their prices really sit at the very top of luxury, sometimes even higher than French and Italian fashion houses, where the clothes often look more intricate. The first reason is simple: the quality of their materials. The Olsen twins are obsessed with fabrics, and almost all of the materials they use come directly from Italy. And that might sound obvious because luxury should mean high-end fabrics, but sadly, it's not the reality anymore. Many historic fashion houses like Dior, Chanel, Balenciaga don't maintain the same quality standards they once had. People who bought their clothes in the 90s often say the difference today is night and day. But the Row really delivers, both in materials and tailoring. When I was researching this, I read so many reviews from industry insiders saying that they had never tried on trousers that fit more perfectly than the Row's. Another factor in the price is production. Until recently, all of it was based in the US, which is almost unheard of in luxury now. Most brands, even the biggest ones, outsource to Turkey, Vietnam, or at best Italy and France. Producing in America is rare because it's the most expensive option. The cost of labor there is higher even compared to France or Italy. During the financial struggles of COVID, the Row had to give up that principle and move part of their production to Italy, which, okay, it's still Italy, but even with Italian craftsmanship and the finest fabrics, the prices are still much higher than the actual cost of the clothes. So why is that? It's also a deliberate choice in how they position the brand. From the beginning, the Row targeted an extremely narrow group of clients, the top 1% of the 1%, the richest of the rich, and according to marketing studies, wealthy clients are actually the most loyal. It's not like the stereotype that they're the most picky. The old money clients are not interested in logos or flaunting wealth. They want discreet, perfectly made clothing. And that's the exact niche the Row built for themselves. It's a business strategy. Set the price high enough that only that category of buyer comes to you. The exclusivity then feeds the brand's reputation, and it works. In the US, the Row is seen as the most popular brand among the richest Americans. The proof is in sales data. The Row was stocked in major luxury department stores in America, and there are reports that their sales outperformed even the famous European houses. When Barney's filed for bankruptcy during the pandemic, they published the list of debts owed to suppliers. The largest debt was to the Row, $3.7 million. For comparison, they owed Celine $2.7 million and Saint Laurent $2.2 million, which means the Row was selling far better than some of the biggest luxury names, which is extraordinary for an American label. Usually, there's this idea that Europe represents old money luxury and America is more mid-market or contemporary with very few true luxury houses, but the Row broke that rule. And then there are these interesting stories that prove just how loyal their clients are. A former sales associate once shared that a woman came in and bought 30 turtlenecks from the Row, all in different colors, of course, spending $30,000 at once. And that's exactly what I mean when I say the Row has become like Uniqlo for the ultra wealthy. The way we stock up on basics at Uniqlo for a new season, their clients stock up on $1,000 turtlenecks. Another story, a woman was hosting an event at her house and wanted slippers for her guests. She bought 15 pairs of the Row mink trim slippers at $1,450 each, just for her guests to wear at home. That really proves the point. The extreme pricing isn't just about materials or production. It's a deliberate strategy to position themselves as the go-to brand for the very top tier of clients. The locations of the Row boutiques obviously matter too. They have 5: Paris, London, New York, LA, and Amagansett. And if this is the first time you've heard the name, it's definitely time to get familiar with Long Island. Amagansett is a super affluent area in the pricey East Hampton. If the Row was a religious cult, Amagansett would be its pilgrimage site. So it's no coincidence that the biggest secret of the Row's charm is that the Olsen sisters know the world of the ultra-rich from the inside. They live in it. They were once the youngest self-made millionaires in American history. And luxury is a word thrown around everywhere today, but for them, it's something that actually makes their life easier. Mary-Kate says the idea is that you can walk into a store, buy a piece from the Row, put it on, and it already feels like it's part of your wardrobe. That's true luxury. It's effortless, and you don't even have to think about it. Another element of success for the Row was creating their own it bag. In a recent video about bags, I already talked about the magic behind the Birkin. According to American Vogue, the Row's must-have bags include the Sophia, Nina, Margaux, and a few others. What's really interesting is that each bag has its own fan army. Every single one resells for multiples of its original price, starting around $3,000 depending on the model. But the real star of the lineup is Margaux. It was designed in 2018 by Ellen Kern, and people now often call it the new Birkin. Every season, it comes out in new colors and sizes, and in the fourth quarter of 2023, it was officially named the most desired bag in the world by Lyst. Its popularity reached such heights that insiders started worrying. Why? Because Margaux is so popular, it could easily pull the Row into the mainstream. And that's exactly what the Olsen twins don't want. In February of this year, rumors started circulating that the Row team might stop producing Margaux. Of course, this only fueled interest in the bag even more and pushed the Row up to 9th place in the list of the most popular brands worldwide. The Margaux is basically impossible to get in stores. It's almost always sold out. That scarcity drives resale prices even higher, from an average $7K to $10K. Creating your own it bag is the dream of any brand, and it looks like the Olsen twins pulled it off perfectly. Margaux is the perfect example of how the Row maintains exclusivity and prestige, highly desired, rarely available, and entirely in their control, which is exactly how they want it. The Row also doesn't cut corners when it comes to staff. If you imagine it's just the twins designing everything, that's not the case. They genuinely wanted to create something worth worthwhile, so from the start they worked with professional designers because they didn't have formal design training themselves. The brand was co-founded with designer Daniel Sherman, who helped shape the row in its early years before moving on to work at Alexander Wang and later founding her own jewelry label. Another key name in its history is Nadezhda Cybulski, who was part of the design team in 2011 and went on to become women's creative director at Hermès in 2014. Veronica Leoni, who previously worked at Jill Sander, Celine, and Moncler, also spent time at the row and in 2024 was named creative director of Calvin Klein collection. Here's a fun fact you won't find in press or TikTok. 19 years after its launch, the row still runs with a very small team, mostly freelance. Staff are scattered globally. The studio moved from New York to Paris, but the Olsens still live in New York. Part of the team lives in London. Veronica Leoni, for example, used to live in Milan. So there isn't a huge headquarters. Everyone works independently and meets in Paris for fittings. This is a perfect example of the twins' small ego and realistic self-assessment. They don't skimp on talent and they know how to manage their egos as former celebrities. When it comes to achievements, plans, and future perspectives, the Olsen twins have won the Best Women's Designer Award 3 times, basically the American Fashion Oscar. Both the row and the twins' personal style have been praised by Karl Lagerfeld and Anna Wintour. They're genuinely respected in the design community and are not perceived as just Nepo kids who suddenly decided to become designers. Of course, not everyone loves the brand, so for dessert, let's talk about some controversies. Some people criticize the row for what's been called rage bait luxury, basic items with shocking price tags. For example, their $760 Ama foam sliders caused outrage, with many calling them overpriced simplicity and nothing more than quiet luxury hype. But despite the backlash, they sold out instantly. The same thing happened with the $700 rubber flip-flops, the Dune Classic sandal, which sparked criticism for charging so much for such a simple design. There have also been accusations of copying. Stylist Lisa Cooper once told Vogue Italia that the row was the best line at ripping off other lines, pointing out similarities with designers like Rick Owens and Anne de Melumestre. And some critics have even compared certain pieces to vintage Hermès. Do you guys think these pieces look alike? Let me know down in the comments. On top of that, in 2015, the row's parent company was sued by a former intern who claimed she and others worked 50-hour weeks without pay, leading to exhaustion and health issues. The company denied the allegations but later reached a settlement of $140,000. Actually, a lot of people write that the growth of this brand is limited only by the ambitions of the Olsen twins themselves. There were rumors that big companies like LVMH and others had offered to buy the row more than once. However, the sisters didn't sell. There were also whispers that Mary-Kate and Ashley were invited to take creative director positions at historical fashion houses, but eventually the offers stopped coming because the twins kept saying no. The same applied to negotiations with investors, and then in September 2024, they suddenly changed their minds. The row immediately attracted several major investors, the owners of Chanel, the Wertheimer brothers, L'Oreal heiress, along with Nick Brown and Natalie Masson, founders of Net-a-Porter, and Lauren Santo Domingo, co-founder of Modus Operandi. Since the row is not a public company, there is no exact data on the investment amount, but there are a few guesses. Bloomberg reports that after the first round of financing, the row was valued at $1 billion US. Some analysts estimate the company's annual revenue at nearly $500 million, while others say it's around $250 million. Let's settle on the fact that the twins are doing well, but $250 million isn't actually that much if we remember my video about Jacquemus, who reached $200 million in 2022. It seems like the row must be swimming in money with those prices, but actually, that's not the case. While the prices are high, it's important to understand that their clientele is very small and quite particular. Therefore, maintaining those clients takes effort. There's even a story that when one client had a baby, the row sent personalized items for her newborn. So if you are a valued client of the row, there's a chance you might get a little gift from them for your wedding or the birth of a child. But why do they do this? The row cares deeply about the image of their clients to make sure it aligns with their aesthetic. And it's all very tangible, creating that mysterious, exclusive atmosphere. This is exactly what the row does to keep wealthy clients loyal. From a business perspective, the brand could definitely be scaled up even more. But as far as I understand, the Olsen twins have no ambitions to turn the row into this massive global brand. They preserve that very precise positioning, even if it means earning less. Revenue seems to be the last thing on their mind, because when they started, as we remember, they already had 200 million between them, and now their total wealth is estimated at 500 million. Money isn't going to attract them, and they became famous as children, so fame isn't something they crave either. All of these factors allowed and continue to allow them to create a strong, unified brand that is genuinely authentic in its own way. So what do you guys think about the row? Do you think it's worth it? Would you love to own something from them, or do you think it's overpriced? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. YouTube loves your activity, and it really helps push the video to more people. I'll be replying to every single comment, of course, because I really want to know what you think. Smash that like button if you grew up watching Olsen movies like me. If you enjoyed this video, show it some love with some shares, likes, and engagement, and don't forget to share it with your fashion-loving friends. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok for more behind the scenes and style inspo, and hit that bell so you don't miss my next video. See you in the next one. Bye bye.